And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, it'll be Tom Munns and Liberal Steve. Before that, Dan Perkins joins us from some undisclosed location across America, always holding the liberals accountable. Mr. Perkins, good morning. Good to have you with us once again.
Good morning, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So, as we like to say, it's been a long summer, Labor Day just around the corner. What's the state of the country as we get ready to look at Congress going after guns, perhaps taxes? You're a financial guy amongst being a best-selling author, commentator, and a man of the world, and we'll get to you about the possibility of recession. But let's talk a little bit about what can we expect from Congress coming back, sir?
I think we're going to see Congress probably do nothing in the sense that not accomplishing anything. The Democrats in the House are going to continue with their desire to want to impeach the president. We're going to see the Inspector General report, we've been told, sometime in September, right after they come back. We don't know when the other two special counsels that are working, the one in Utah and the one in Connecticut, and then I've got the Attorney General report. So I would expect that what we're going to see is what's going to happen to the momentum for impeachment. The last indication we had was about 77 House members would support a bill of indictment for impeachment. The problem with that, Kevin, is they need 218. So, and I think that the congressmen and senators will have gotten an earful from their constituents over the summer about their lack of interest in having an impeachment period. So there doesn't seem to be, at least at the moment, support for the continuation of impeachment. But I think the Democrats will absolutely have to continue in order to appease their base. So not much happening, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of accusations, but not very productive.
All right, let's move on to the possibility of a recession and this trade war. Dan Perkins, you know the money. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a great question. It's there's a great parallel here, Kevin. And the parallel is that the Democrats, because they lost the election in 2016, had to come up with a rationale that wasn't the fault of the candidate. And so the Russian collusion story evolved. We found out that it was basically false, it was concocted, and that our government and our freedom were at great risk because of the activities of certain non-elected in the government who had decided they knew what was right to do. Well, I think we're looking at the same thing when we're talking about recession. The Democrats who are opposed to the president, including the media, are pushing the narrative, but they don't really have what I consider to be a basis, fundamental basis, to say that we're going to recession. Keep in mind that the classic definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Now we're down from our north of 3 to under 3, 2 and change, but that means that we'd have to stop. The economy would have to stop, and 2 quarters before we would have. It would stop growing totally and start to go negative, and as a result, that would have a recession. People can talk about the possibility of recession, but Kevin, this economy, lest we forget, is 70% driven based on the consumer. What he or she does with their money has the greatest impact on this economy. Not how many automobiles we make or anything else. It is what the consumer decides they're going to do. Consumer spending surprisingly, was up strong in the month of July. Wages have increased nicely. Now it's about $27, $28 an hour. And we have historic low unemployment and about 7 million unfilled jobs. So if the consumer is 70% of the economy, I see the consumer probably being pretty strong. And I don't see how you get 2 negative quarters of GDP growth before we come to the election.
Indeed. But it's odd that the media is cheering for a recession.
But was it odd that the media was cheering for the impeachment of Donald Trump on bogus information?
Mm. Yeah.
So if it was odd that the mainstream media would call for the impeachment of the president on no data, and then when they had no data, they still called for his impeachment, why should it surprise you that as part of their political agenda, they want to talk down the economy, or the perception of talking down the economy? So they start doing all of these appearances on CNN and everybody else talking about the economy could go into a recession. I will tell you, Kevin, I think if I were a Democrat, which I'm not, never have been, to the best of my knowledge, if I had one thing I had to worry about relative to this presidential election, the one thing that I want to worry about the most is that Mr. Trump is, in fact, successful in negotiating a new trade deal with China. Because this market is just waiting for the resolution of that problem. If we get a trade deal that the market believes is a good deal for the United States and a good deal for the world, this market just goes crazy. Remember also, Kevin, global on a money basis seeks the best possible return. That's a truism. Money seeks the best possible return. Right now, if you want to buy a long-term German bond, you have to pay the government as opposed to getting paid from the government, meaning negative interest rates. And when you factor in even moderate inflation, negative real rates of return. Our 30-year bond is still around 2%. So you can choose, I'll put my money in Germany and earn nothing and actually have to pay to put it in Germany, or I'd bring it to the United States where I can have the biggest economy in the world that's growing, and I can earn 2%. On top of that, the economies that is growing in the world is the United States. Other countries the reason why their interest rates are negative is because they're doing everything they can to try and stimulate their economy to grow. And so we are the best place in the world to bring money to put to work from an interest rate standpoint and an economic opportunity. And so, again, that maligns the idea we're going to have a recession. It says that America is the place in the world to have your money. So no recession, in fact, increasing demand. I mean, you heard the president say to the American corporations, you should seriously think about taking your companies and your manufacturing out of China and bring it back to the United States. And so that there's a lot of things going on,
right,
that just the trade, if Mr. Trump is able to negotiate an effective trade deal with China. Remember, Kevin, that Mr. Trump is, in fact, negotiating on behalf of the United States. But the reality is, Kevin, that he's negotiating on behalf of the entire world and its relationship with China. There's only one trading partner to China at the moment that has a balance of trade, and that's Japan. Everybody else in the world has a negative trade balance with China. And so what this represents, if Mr. Trump changes the battlefield, everybody else in the world is going to be knocking on China's door. I want some of that too. And so there's going to be a fundamental shift, which is going to present, I think, significant opportunity for the U.S. economy.
Dan Perkins, we appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of you, what can they do?
DanPerkins.guru is the place to find all kinds of stuff. And it's been a while since I talked to you, so I do have something I want to tell you about songs and stories.
Why not?
You may be aware or remember that the president signed an executive order in February establishing a cabinet-level task force to address the problem of suicide with veterans. And once that was announced, I wrote to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, presenting them information on what we have been doing at Songs and Stories for the last 5 years and offering my help in any way that I possibly could. About a month ago, I received from the executive director of the task force a questionnaire to tell them what I think the issues were that needed to be addressed to deal with veteran suicide. I completed that, and 2 weeks ago, I received an invitation from the executive director to represent Songs and Stories for Soldiers and can come and participate in a task force conference in Washington, D.C.
Well, I know this is so close to your heart. You've been talking about this for a while, and to really make an impact on our heroes, and this is awesome.
I think so too. I mean, it makes me feel good and proud that the Department of Veterans Affairs is recognizing the contribution that people like you have, who have supported us, was running our spots and everything. We've helped 19,000 veterans with our players. We're in 130 facilities across the country and growing, and it's just very heartwarming to finally get some recognition, not that it's important for me, but recognition of so many hundreds and hundreds of people who have been involved to try and keep this opportunity to help veterans going. And we're just absolutely thrilled that we're going to be part of the hopefully the solution. And as important as that is, Kevin, my hope is, and I said this to the task force when I wrote my response, last year we had 57,000 civilians who took their own lives. Hopefully what we learn on this task force to deal with suicide with veterans can transfer to the civilian sector, and we can begin to address a huge problem in the civilian sector too.
Dan Perkins, one more time, your website?
DanPerkins.guru.
All right. Great job, my friend. Thank you, sir.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Boy, Dan Perkins, a little choked up there, helping veterans stay alive. Coming up next, Uncensored, Tom Munz, Unfiltered, Liberal Steve, and you with me, KIDO Talk Radio. And we're joined by Tom Munz, TomMunz.com, Munz Tom Twitter, with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Kevin.
Thank you for your extended patience today. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, well, anyway. So I think Lori that called in should be considered for superintendent. I love what she had to say. I wanted to help direct her, though. She was looking for a Dinesh D'Souza thing that talked about governments. You probably remember this. The John Birch Society had their flagship video overview of America that was actually in schools in the 80s for most kids to be able to understand the difference between the isms, communism, socialism, and fascism and the like. So I would actually direct any of the listeners that have a problem with the society or they just need a refresher on the form of government to be able to click on Overview of America and watch what kind of country we had and look at the kind of country we have now, just through historical context. You had a guy on a minute. I wanted to hit on what pro-life said. He was talking about, we had a good Constitution lesson this morning when he was talking about, the sort of bastardization of our form of government. And I wanted to be able to include that the fact that every level of government is this way. Most of the people in the local school boards, all the way into city councils, they believe that they should be playing follow the leader, and apparently haven't graduated from kindergarten yet when they have that belief. But the other thing to consider too is the danger of associations. We've talked about Otter, and we've talked about IACI, and we've talked about the Environmental Initiatives Group. There's also the Association of Counties, the Association of Cities, the Association of Mayors, the Association of Police Chiefs, the Association of Sheriffs. Everywhere you go, there is a conglomerate or an association of government people. That is not constitutional And what that actually does is it allows mob rule to be able to take over and manipulate the citizens in their communities to be able to do the will of this collective. And so when we're talking about individual rights, it's important to remember that individual rights are the opposite of collective rights, right? Like the groups like the gays and the blacks and the cops and the chiefs and all that. We're individuals, okay? So whenever you have the government that collectivizes, or citizens for that nature, it's what our founders in the early Federalist Papers called factions. And so this is very abusive to our system. The other part was relating to the guy that you had that was talking about this trade agreement. You know, there's more. The one thing about this is the USMCA trade agreement that Trump is supporting is the U.S., which is the United States, M is in Mexico, CA is Canada, but the only thing they ever talk about is a level playing field with China. So I'm going to ask everybody here if Logic has any ruling in this morning. In the United States, Canada, Mexico agreement, why is the only thing you're hearing about, number one, economics, and number two, China? And so the issue here is really what is going on and what kind of deception is actually being used. And, of course, there's more to trade than economics.
Well, wait a minute. When you're talking about deception, what are you alleging?
I am talking about the fact that if it's a United States, Canada, Mexico trade agreement, why is the only thing they're talking about China? When I was talking to one of Trump's advisors, or not advisors, or one of his people here in Idaho, he specifically said, "Tom, you're wrong on this, because China has a way better playing field or a fair advantage than the United States does." And I said, but why is China involved in the United States, Canada, Mexico trade agreement then?
They're everywhere.
Didn't it have been something like the United States-China trade agreement?
The Chinese
are
everywhere.
So it's complicated, but there's a sovereignty issue that needs to be that we need to be concerned with, and look at what this actually does. What it does is it actually puts the United Nations back in control of education when he ended up backing out of UNESCO. The other part of this is it strengthens the United Nations and its ability to be able to implement more radical progressive policies, circumventing not only the legislature or the Congress, but the legislature. And so we really have to understand if he's truly America first, and I'm not saying I'm anti-Trump. At this point, any other option that we have is rather dangerous. But how dangerous could this be when we idolize the man and we don't look at the issue? And that's really the point I'm trying to bring attention to. So
we appreciate you, Tom. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. God bless everybody.
God bless you, Tom Munns. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Dave. Liberal Steve, thank you for your patience. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, your listeners can't handle the truth. And then John with his Bircherism. I mean, Bircherism, from the day it started.
You mean Tom?
Right. Who?
You said John.
Tom, I said.
Oh, maybe I need to get my ears cleaned.
Tom, who's spokesman for the Rome of Appleton, Wisconsin, their headquarters. I mean, they've been a fringe element since the beginning. And Linda, come on, Linda, talk about. I want to hear what Steve's got to say. If he's on LSD today, blah blah blah. Linda,
no, I think she said I think she just said mushrooms.
Mushrooms, yeah. Well,
you've bragged about eating mushrooms before.
She dreams about me. She wants me, but I'm married. She can't have me. Linda.
Boy, that's reassuring to know that you're a taken man.
And the grandma that says, I've got lots of kids and lots of grandkids. Who cares? That doesn't make her right. That doesn't make what she's got to say right.
I care.
And that doesn't make Trump right because he's got a right to lifer backing him and this and that. I mean, come on. Everybody knows he's absolutely lost his mind and shouldn't be in the presidency. It's like the king that's got no clothes. That's why we're taught that book. So we could stand up to kings like this. I'm the chosen one. Oh, and about hemp, you know what? Idahoans want to beat the hemp deal. Remember when they stopped the truck and couldn't test it? They had to send it away for testing, and it took forever.
Yes.
Do you remember that, Kevin?
I remember.
Well, if you get busted for an ounce or so of what they say is cannabis, say that's not cannabis, that's hemp. And just tie up the courts forever having it tested.
Well, that's why it's not going to happen. And that's why myself and Governor Little and all the people of law enforcement and all the righteous will stop you.
Well, the government is little. And they're saying out there right now, oh, my God, I hope none of the potheads hurt him. We'll be tied up forever.
You know, I'm not afraid.
We'll never get a case into court.
I'm not afraid of you and your potheads.
I'm not afraid of you and your hemp heads.
We don't have any hemp heads, but I will tell you that
you've got
you.
Kevin, tell me this. Kevin, tell me this. In the studios down there, is there more FM stations than AM stations?
We're both.
Who do you think listens to more?
Do you
FM
know?
music?
Do you know why? Do you know why we're on FM and AM? Because the commitment was made by the corporate people to invest in this show and this station to reach a whole new audience, and it's working. That's why.
Well, it should work. That's why you have people that own these stations. That's why you have thinkers and doers.
You know what they said? They said, Kevin Miller, your message to save Idaho is working. We need to help. So here's another signal. And that's why people call me all the time and want me to go work in other places.
Well, sure.
Because America needs to be saved. But you know what? We're here as long as the powers that be that will have me. And even if they don't, I'll still be here. You can come see me at the Chick-fil-A, and you can order a number one from me.
No, I will not go to Chick-fil-A because of their attitude toward homosexuality.
Well, that's reassuring. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
This should be an easy lift for every member of the Congress of the United States. And we're going to make it an easy lift for them because we are going to march on the Capitol in the United States to prove to the Senate that if they don't take action on this, they're going to lose their elections. And that's the way we should be looking at it.
There you have it. Representative Jackie Speier on background checks, followed by Nancy Pelosi.
We introduced it in January, we passed it in February, sent it over to the Senate, along with a companion bill, H.R. 1112, which also addressed comprehensive background checks, common sense background checks, gun violence prevention. We have said we are not taking no for an answer. We're not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, do you know how many background checks that we have already for guns? How many gun laws? We'll talk about that coming up, but let's get back to your phone calls. Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. It is a nice morning. It was really nice until I heard Liberal Steve run his mouth. Oh, come on. This guy, somebody must have kicked over the box he was sleeping in. I guess that'll put anybody in a bad mood, huh?
Kicked over the box he was sleeping in?
Oh, come on. This guy's a bum.
He's a bum.
He came out of the gate attacking Tom. Oh, by the way, he did say John the first time. Your hearing isn't bad.
Oh, thank you.
He attacked Tom. He attacked Liberty Linda. He attacked the president. I'm attacking him, but I don't want to leave this little interview on a bad note. I want to bring up the fact that every day when you look around, you can see Americans at their best. I was at the Albertsons the other day, and the lady dropped I just see their bag door open, her groceries hit the floor, and about 8 of us were scrambling to scoop these up, put them in the bag, make sure it was okay, that everything was fine for her. That's America.
Is it America or is it Idaho?
I think it's America. I think that I was a long-time Chicago resident, and I've seen it there. I've seen it on the busy streets, even on Franklin, which is the middle of dirt town. Somebody falls down, someone gets knocked down. Folks run to help.
Wait a minute. Are you saying Franklin? Are you saying Franklin Road is the middle of dirt town? You're going to have to expand on that.
Franklin Road runs right through hell in Chicago.
Oh, I thought you meant Franklin here.
No, I'm sorry. Franklin is infamous in Chicago. It is drive-by city. It is crime city. It's what the president would call a beep hole country.
Ooh. Thanks for the beep.
But it happens. I mean, anywhere in this country, you do see more of it in Idaho, a lot more of it here. But people want to be nice to each other. because I find no matter where I go, a smile, a handshake, I give the mailman a cold Coca-Cola. You know, when I see these workers on the street, I'll swing over and grab a 6-pack of cold Cokes, just give them something to drink. It's a small gesture. People return it. The other day I was somewhere downtown. I was on the way near Dave & Buster's.
Oh.
And I was parked, and this guy pulls up beside me in a pickup, and he says, "Max." I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I was working on the road the other day putting down tar, and you brought us all Cokes." And in turn, he bought me lunch. I mean, you know, hey, people like to do things for people. I'd like to buy you lunch, but you're too busy or important to ever get back to me. But that's okay.
You know, you should be a Catholic. You've got the guilt trip down fairly well.
I was a Catholic right up until October the 6th of 2017.
I can tell you've got that Catholic guilt. That doesn't excuse me for not going out to lunch with you.
Yeah,
yes.
If you're a good Catholic, you'll respond to the guilt trip, and we'll do a lunch.
It hit me hard on that one. So
I can hit you hard in Latin too. So come on, Bubba. Come on, Bubba. You're going to do some calling. Let's do this handshaking, smiling thing, but let's not make it a political handshake. Let's do this thing for real. I've met you, talked to you, been in the studio with you. It's time to be at the dinner table with you.
Well, I'm not that compelling of a person in real life, but Max, we will do that. So thank you.
Okay, remember, the onus is on you, my friend. Have a good one. And Liberal Steve, I hope Kevin might play that MP3 I sent him. All about you. Ray Amaya's got it. We did a song for Steve. We respect him so much. I got a guy in my studio here with a ukulele, and we sat down and we cut some tracks, and we came up with a very amateurish but fun little song all about our favorite commie pig, Steve.
We're all about amateurish. And by the way, we love Liberal Steve, but he's not a pig. He's a nice young man. R&R joins us now. R&R, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. It's been a while. Good morning.
Hey, your humor is so much appreciated this time of day. And your happy return to Idaho. So I wanted to talk about something that was said yesterday. It's a misnomer that you don't pay property taxes if you have the deed and own a home in Idaho, because my property values in an adjoining county have almost doubled in 6 years, and I paid cash, and thank goodness I was under $100,000 when I started, because supposedly the values doubled, and my property taxes are up about 2/3. So let me
hit you with this. Do you think, and this should get people talking, you think state is ripping us off with these elevated property values just so they can collect more taxes?
I think, well, I've got, I was going to say, two of my dear daughters live in Ada County, and they are, it's almost where one of them's got to leave the nest and being a full-time mom to go out and get a job to keep up with property taxes. And they don't blame Californians per se, but it's just the elevated property taxes do not represent the domicile. So in your name and your good voice on the airwaves, because I know you're connected, I really would like to see some kind of a tax limit proposal and have it go through, not so much like California did, but
well,
it's got to be the first 100,000 or something.
You know, all we're hearing from our politicians these days is what they can't do. They can't repeal the grocery tax. They can't fund Medicaid. And you're going, look, can't we just replace them with a click? You know, like you go to Amazon or something. Why don't we just replace them with a website?
I know. Like I said at the start, your humor. And I was kind of out of the loop for a while, but did Touchdown Tommy come in to apply for the job of the mayor of Boise? I was hoping.
You know, I think
somebody with the brain.
I think Touchdown Tommy, they got 5 people running for the mayor of Boise. I think Tommy Ahlquist is so smart, he's not even going to touch that one. And, you know, like I said, he's always welcome on the program. And, we'll find out what his latest plan for world domination is one day. But yeah, touchdown Tommy. Wonder what he's up to.
You're dialed in. Thanks for making us all laugh. Talk to you later.
All right, R&R, thank you. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. A couple stories coming up. We're going to have the latest on the Boise Braves. If you're not familiar with that story, for years, the Boise High School mascot was the Braves. Now bowing to either being overly sensitive to the tribes or sensitive to the tribes or whomever. Of course, the Florida State Seminoles, they're not changing their name. The Native Americans like that to be associated with the Seminoles, but regardless, not at Boise High, which is their right to do. They're the Boise Brave, which, again, grammatically I'm challenged, but I really don't get the Boise Brave thing. Coming up, we're going to tell you what they're going to do with the big rock in front of Boise High School. Very exciting stuff here, and we're going to get into the world of culture, and we're going to get into the world of faith. And it has to do with Representative Omar, who talks about being a good person of her faith, but there's some allegations that Omar stole somebody's husband. Now, there are other allegations that she married her brother. Now, I don't know if that's true, and look, we don't want to, that's why we say allegedly. I don't know if that's true. Those unsubstantiated, I guess they've been documented, whether or not Omar married her brother allegedly to get into the country. Now you've got, well, I'll tell you about it next. It has less to do with Omar and has more to do with faith. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And welcome back, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio.
We introduced it in January, we passed it in February, sent it over to the Senate, along with a companion bill, H.R. 1112, which also addressed comprehensive background checks, common sense background checks, gun violence prevention. We have said we are not taking no for an answer. We're not taking no for an answer.
There we have it. There we have it. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Boy, you take a look at that and you just have to wonder when you're thinking and hearing about what Nancy Pelosi has in mind when Congress comes back in session. And in reality, do they want to save lives? Do they want to make a difference? No, it's about getting a Democratic Senate. It's about getting a Democratic president, and they'll take away our rights. That's really what it's about, in my opinion. Other news of the day, if you're looking for, and this is odd, so there's a big rock in front of Boise High School. I think it was a gift, and they've got a picture of the Brave on it, like Native American warrior, Indian warrior, Native American warrior, right? So because the Boise whatever, intelligentsia at Boise High School and the leadership and the Boise School Board and everything else decided that it was offensive to have the name Brave, although it's been there for years, they were trying to figure out what to do with this rock because you can't have it there anymore because that's not the mascot and people find it offensive, and we can't say third world country anymore when we're describing crime-infested cities. We can't say anything in America anymore because we'll be condemned and people will vilify us, right? So even though it was a class gift, right? Even though it was a class gift, it will be put up for auction. And I'm trying to think, and there'll be sealed bids for this. So if you want to own a piece of the rock, or the rock, if you will, you have to submit a bid, I guess, to Boise High or the Boise School Board. Channel 7 has the story on their site about it. And they're going to have sealed bids. So whoever gets the sealed bid wins, right? So think about that. I'm trying to think if I could put that in. I wouldn't want to put it in my backyard. I'd like to put it in my front yard. But maybe the HOA would have an issue, but, if we had any type of land here at the broadcast center, I guess I'd have to talk to not only upper management, but building management here, whether or not we could put it here at the broadcast center. Think about this. Here you have a class gift. A lot of money was spent on this gift. And boom, now it will be put up for auction. What does that say to the people that, donated and all that, the alumni? Not much. Coming up next, Omar's in hot water when it comes to her marital status. First, traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. So here we have it from the New York Post. A Washington, D.C. mom says her political consultant husband left her for Representative Ilhan Omar, according to a bombshell divorce filing obtained by the New York Post. Dr. Beth Minette says her cheating spouse, Tim Minette, told her in April that he was having an affair with the Somali-born congresswoman, and that he even made a shocking declaration of love for Omar before he ditched his wife, alleged in the court filing. By the way, Dr. Minette is 55, her husband 38. Omar, I believe, has 3 kids. Now, Representative Omar, who wears her religion on her clothing all the time, professes to be a devout woman of the Islamic faith. Of course, I believe she was divorced before, then remarried her husband. You have allegations that she married her brother. That has yet to be determined, so her brother could come into America. This is crazy town. And then you have the age disparity between Dr. Beth Minette, who's 55, and her soon-to-be ex-husband, who's 38. Now, this is the problem and the challenge when people start wearing their faith in public. I'm a good Muslim. I'm a good Christian. Well, then you have to live up to those things, right? I can remember many years ago, and pardon the indulgence here, when yours truly was a rising star in talk radio. He was booked in New York to be on the Greta Van Susteren show, not before Fox News, when she was on CNN. And it was 3 weeks before September 11th. And I'm there with 3 older women. And I'm saying that Rudy Giuliani needs to resign. Now, thankfully, he didn't listen to me. Because when you're a Republican, you don't cheat on your spouse and get kicked out of Gracie Mansion. Now, again, he without, sin cast the first stone. You look at what Omar is going through. I'm a devout Muslim. I'm a devout this person. And then you have this messy divorce, right? Where you have Omar, who's not only had problems. By the way, the political consultant made about, $200,000 or $300,000 working for old Omar. Crazy, isn't it? By the way, Omar and her predecessor, let's see, the physician, 55, and her 38-year-old husband, who has worked for left-wing Democrats such as Omar and Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison, have a 13-year-old son together. They separated last April. It's getting messy. We'll talk about it next. Morning.